Hey everyone, welcome to a deep dive that's, well, tailor-made just for you.
That's right. We're zeroing in on something you specifically wanted to explore,
Mm.
stress, and how it ties into weight loss.
Yeah, I think we've all been there, right? Like
Eh,
after a crazy day, who hasn't just kind of wanted to, I don't know, eat an entire pint of ice cream? Anyone, no judgment here.
Definitely relatable.
So that's what we're digging into today. We're taking fit and healthy living as our source material.
It's a really interesting one, lots to unpack.
For sure. Okay, so get this. You want to ditch a few pounds, but stress eating keeps, creeping back in. Sound familiar?
Happens to the best of us.
Well, good news is we're going to break it all down. We're talking about that sciencey link between stress, these hormones in our bodies, and yep, you guessed it, weight gain.
And even better, we're going to give you some actual things you can do about it, ways to manage that stress so you can get back in the driver's seat with your health.
Exactly. It's all about giving you the tools, right? Now, something I always thought was interesting, well, maybe interesting isn't the right word, but I always heard stress is like the enemy. Straight up bad news.
Right. Yeah, it gets a pretty bad rap.
But fit and healthy living, they had this whole different take. So I'm really curious to get your expert opinion on this.
Well, here's the thing. Stress in and of itself isn't always a bad thing.
Really? Okay, now you've got my attention.
I know it sounds kind of strange, right? But think about it. Remember that jolt of energy you get when you're, say, facing a super tight deadline, or maybe you've got a big presentation at work.
Oh, tell me about it. Stage fright is real.
Exactly. That's actually stress, giving you that extra push, helping you perform under pressure. It's basically our body's natural fight or flight response, that instinct to either confront the challenge or run away from it. And this kind of short-term stress, that quick burst, it's actually beneficial, motivates us to get stuff done. The problem arises when that stress becomes chronic, when it's always there, a constant presence in our lives. That's when it starts to really impact our health and, yeah, our weight too.
So it's like the difference between, I don't know, sprinting for the bus every once in a while versus running a marathon every single day.
That's a great way to put it. It's about finding that balance.
That makes a lot more sense. Okay, so chronic stress, bad news. But how does that actually lead to weight gain? You'd think constantly feeling on edge would make you lose weight, not gain it, right?
It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it all boils down to, well, hormones. Our bodies are these crazy complex systems, and when we're dealing with chronic stress, they pump out a whole bunch of hormones. And the ringleader of this whole operation is cortisol.
Okay, so cortisol. That's the stress hormone, right?
You got it. And while cortisol definitely plays some important roles in our bodies, like regulating energy and managing how we respond to threats, when cortisol levels are constantly elevated, that's when things can go haywire, especially for our waistlines.
So high cortisol equals bad news for anyone trying to shed a few pounds.
You could say that. It's not doing us any favors in the weight loss department.
Gotcha. Okay, so spill the tea. How does this whole cortisol thing actually work?
Well, think of it this way. Cortisol's main job is to replenish your body's energy stores after you've experienced something stressful. It's basically your body's way of prepping for the next fight or flight situation, making sure you've got enough energy in the tank.
So it's like our bodies are preparing for a famine or something?
In a way, yeah. Problem is, back in the day, this system worked pretty well. If you were running from a saber-toothed tiger, your body needed those extra calories.
Makes sense. Not a lot of saber-toothed tigers roaming around these days, though. More like, traffic jams and work deadlines.
Exactly. And that's where the disconnect happens. We're not burning off those extra calories like we used to, so what happens? Our bodies end up storing them, often as fat. And you know where it loves to hang out.
Oh, I think I have a feeling. Around the belly.
You got it, right around the midsection.
Ugh, the worst kind.
Tell me about it. But it's not just about cortisol, though it's definitely the main culprit.
Oh, there are other hormonal villains in this story.
Oh yeah, chronic stress messes with a whole bunch of our hormones, including one you've probably heard of, insulin. You see, when stress hormones are running the show, they can mess with how sensitive our bodies are to insulin, which makes it a lot harder to regulate our blood sugar levels.
And remind me again what happens when blood sugar takes a nosedive.
You get those intense cravings for sugary, fatty foods, things that'll give you a quick burst of energy. And that, my friend, sets the stage for a vicious cycle of stress eating and, you guessed it, more weight gain.
It's like our own bodies are working against us. No wonder it can feel like such an uphill battle.
It's true. Those hormones can be tricky. But don't worry, there are ways to outsmart them. Which reminds me, didn't Fit and Healthy Living have some really interesting examples of this in action?
Oh, yeah, they talked about Julie. She was really struggling. So Julie, what was her deal again? She was trying so hard to lose weight, right?
Oh, yeah. Julie was super dedicated, like meticulously counting every calorie, wouldn't touch a crumb of anything that wasn't on her approved list.
Sounds kind of familiar, actually. I've been there.
Right. But here's the thing. She was so focused on what she was eating, or really what she wasn't eating, that it basically created this constant state of stress around food. Like it was all she could think about.
So even though she was technically doing all the right things, her stress levels were going through the roof.
Exactly. And her body, stuck in that chronic stress response, was pumping out cortisol like it was going out of style.
Mm.
And as we talked about, high cortisol. Yeah, that can lead to increased appetite, those crazy cravings, and ultimately, yep, weight gain.
It's kind of ironic, right? Like her attempts to lose weight were actually, well, making her gain weight.
It's a cruel irony for sure. Talk about a self-sabotage cycle.
For real. And then there was Pierre, right? His story was a little different.
Totally. Pierre's stress was mostly coming from his job, super demanding, always juggling deadlines, working late. He'd grab takeout on his way home because there just weren't enough hours in the day to, like, cook a healthy meal.
Ugh, I feel that. Work stress can totally derail even the best intentions.
No kidding. And just like Julie, all that chronic stress from his crazy work schedule kept Pierre's cortisol levels way too high. So even when he did manage to make healthier choices, his body, flooded with those stress hormones, was like, nope, gotta store this as fat just in case.
Our bodies really are stuck in survival mode, huh? Like holding on to every calorie just in case we have to outrun a predator. Except, the predator is deadlines and overflowing inboxes.
Pretty much. It makes you realize that weight loss isn't just about, calories in versus calories out. It's way more nuanced than that. It's about managing our mental state too.
Totally. It's about the whole picture, mental and physical.
Exactly. So this brings us back to stress management. And remember that important distinction we made earlier, short-term versus long-term stress.
Right. Short term can be good, long term, not so much.
Exactly. We got to find ways to prevent those everyday stressors from becoming chronic, from taking over and basically pushing our bodies into that fight or flight mode 24/7.
Okay, so how do we do that? Are we just supposed to, like, quit our jobs and go live in a monastery somewhere? Because don't get me wrong, that sounds kind of amazing, but it's not exactly realistic for most of us.
Yeah, not many of us have that luxury. But the good news is there are some really simple yet powerful things we can do, things we can build into our everyday lives to help us manage that stress. And lucky for us, Fit and Healthy Living had some great tips.
Yeah, they had some really practical advice.
They did. And one that really stood out to me was breath work. I know, that sounds kind of basic, right?
Well, I mean, we breathe all day long. How can that possibly help with stress?
It seems almost too simple, but you wouldn't believe the impact our breath has on our nervous system. See, when we're stressed out, we tend to take these short, shallow breaths, right? Almost like we're panting.
Oh, yeah, totally. Especially when I'm feeling anxious about something.
And that, my friend, that just perpetuates that fight or flight response. But when we take these deep, slow breaths, it can actually shift our bodies into a state of relaxation. It's like flipping a switch in our nervous system.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So instead of those quick, panicked breaths, we should be aiming for longer, deeper ones.
You got it. And there are specific techniques that can make this even more effective, like the 4-7-8 breathing exercise. It's so easy, anyone can do it. Imagine you're blowing up a balloon, okay? You breathe in deeply through your nose for a count of 4, hold that breath for a count of 7, and then exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 8.
I swear, I'm already feeling calmer just hearing you describe that. It's kind of wild how such a small shift in our breathing can have such a big impact.
It's pretty incredible. And studies have actually shown that deep belly breathing, in particular, activates our parasympathetic nervous system.
Parasympathetic. No, there's a word I haven't heard in a while.
Right. But it's basically the opposite of that fight or flight response. Think of it as the rest and digest system, the one that's all about promoting relaxation, slowing things down, and yes, reducing those pesky stress hormones we've been talking about.
So it's like hitting the brakes on that whole stress cascade in our bodies. I love that. And the best part is, it's something we can do anytime, anywhere, like at our desks, in traffic, even standing in line at the grocery store. No one even has to know you're doing it. But what about other ways to deal with stress? Besides, controlling our breath, is there anything else we can do?
Absolutely. This one's going to sound really simple, but never underestimate the power of a good walk. especially after being stuck at a desk all day.
I'm all for a good walk, but how does that actually help at like a hormonal level? We're talking about chemical messengers here. Can a stroll around the block really make a difference?
It really can. Even light physical activity like a brisk walk, some gentle yoga, even a bit of gardening can work wonders for our mood and our waistlines. Exercise, even in small doses, helps to burn off those excess stress hormones, cortisol included, plus it releases endorphins.
Endorphins, right? Those are the like feel-good
You
chemicals.
got it. So exercise is basically a two-for-one deal. It helps you burn off those stress hormones like cortisol, and it gives you a boost of those mood-lifting endorphins.
Win-win. Sign me up. Now, I know not everyone's like a gym rat, myself included, and I remember Fit and Healthy Living talked about finding creative outlets to help manage stress, too.
Totally. And, it makes sense. Engaging in activities like painting, maybe writing, playing an instrument, heck, even just dancing around your living room, these can be super therapeutic. They give you that healthy distraction from all the stressors in your life, let you channel your energy into something positive and, well, fun.
It's about finding what works for you, right? What helps you unwind? Because, like, not everyone's going to want to run a marathon to de-stress. Some people would rather, I don't know, knit a scarf.
Exactly. It's personal. Explore those different options. Find what helps you unwind and de-stress. That's the key. And actually, there's another technique they mentioned that I thought was really interesting. Practicing mindfulness, particularly around food, that could be huge when it comes to stress eating.
So instead of like mindlessly munching on chips while we're scrolling through social media, we should be more present, more aware when we eat.
Exactly. It's about bringing that awareness to the whole experience of eating. Really paying attention to the taste, the texture, even the aroma of your food. Savoring each bite.
Yeah.
Almost like you're encountering those flavors for the very first time. And doing this, it can really help us break free from those, automatic and often unhealthy eating patterns that we fall into, especially when we're stressed.
So it's not just about what we're eating, it's about how and even why we're eating it. This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening.
Right. It really makes you think.
It's amazing how much our mental state, especially stress, can impact our physical health and, yeah, our weight.
It's all connected. That mind-body connection is powerful. And that's really what it comes down to, sustainable weight loss. It's not just about counting calories. It's about taking care of our whole selves, mental and physical. And that means learning how to manage stress effectively.
Couldn't agree more. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's like the one thing you hope our listeners will remember about stress and its impact on their weight?
Remember that chronic stress, it can really work against you, even if you're doing everything else right. It's like having this secret saboteur, undermining your progress. But the good news is you can take control.
Yes, you have the power. Okay, so how do we do that? Give our listeners one tangible step they can take, like today, to start managing that stress and getting back in the driver's seat of their health.
It sounds simple, but I'd say experiment with the things we talked about today. Whether it's trying out those deep breathing exercises, going for a walk in nature, or, hey, maybe even dusting off that old guitar in the corner. Find what helps you de-stress and make it a part of your life. Remember, small changes can make a big difference over time.
Love that. It's about those small, consistent steps. Well, that's about it for this deep dive. But before we go, for those of you listening, I'll leave you with this. What's one small change you can make today to manage your stress in a healthier way? Maybe it's finally trying that yoga class you've been putting off, taking 5 minutes to just breathe, or even just, being more present during your meals. You've got this.
And remember, take a deep breath.
Yeah.
You're doing great.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Until next time, take care, everyone, and happy de-stressing.